Hello and welcome to The World Today. I'm Millicent Walker. Let's catch up on the latest in Ukraine today. Oil producers have agreed to boost output in July and August following the European Union's move to block most imports from Russia. But the increase will only partially make up for decreased Russian output. The US has announced a new round of sanctions against Russian individuals, including several prominent Russian government officials. We also understand that fierce street fighting continues in the eastern city of Severodonetsk, where 80% of the industrial city, it's said, has fallen to Russian forces. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Russia now controls 20% of his country's territory. And during an address in Luxembourg Parliament, Russian forces have also shelled the city of Kharkiv overnight, and we understand that they've also carried out a missile strike in Lviv. Well, for the latest, joining us now is VOA's correspondent Anna Chernikova. She joins me now from Kiev. Hi, Anna. Before we talk about the other parts of the east, how is Kiev today? What's happening there?
Good evening. Well, Kiev is more or less okay. Kiev citizens is unfortunately getting used to all this, and every day, a couple of times actually per day, we have air raid sirens still also over the night. Today, actually, it was no siren, but there were a couple of them during the night and yesterday in the evening. So the city is trying to come back to normal as much as it can. Of course, it's not going to be as normal as it was before the 24th of February, unfortunately, but still small businesses are trying to come back and start working again. Middle businesses, big businesses. So, people are trying to get this atmosphere, this mood of life back. And of course, as summer starts, we still, all people are trying to get this summer feeling. But everything that people can still think about, and in Kyiv especially as well, is that tomorrow going to be 100 days of this war.
And we understand that Russia's army is trying to break Ukraine's defense in the eastern region from all directions. What are you hearing?
This is true. Again, we should concentrate now at Luhansk region in particular, because this is the main battlefield at the moment, and in particular the city of Severodonetsk, which is 80% occupied now by Russian forces. However, very heavy fightings are continuing, and just recently we received another confirmation from the Ukrainian military officials that Ukrainian army managed to do a counter-attack operation in Severodonetsk and killed certain part of Russian forces and captured some of the soldiers as well. And advanced in certain area. But still, we should understand that the city of Severodonetsk is a huge battlefield, and unfortunately, Russian forces just burn it down as it was with Mariupol. We also should understand that Luhansk region is, there is another city that remains completely under Ukrainian control, which is Lysychansk, and Lysychansk is a city on the top. So in terms of the landscape, and it will be quite difficult for Russian forces to proceed there. So we will see how all this will go on. But again, what we can see is that it's now 4 days of very heavy fighting, street fighting in the city of Severodonetsk. Also, there are a lot of shellings happening, and not only there, but also in Donetsk region in particular. So Russian forces are trying to attack with different kind of equipment from air, from land, and from artillery. And Donetsk region is also pretty much this in the center, in the spotlight of the battle at the moment. This is what we have to understand in terms of the eastern part. Also, as was reported, Kharkiv region and the city of Kharkiv in particular is suffering from shellings as well. Of course, it's not. It's nothing for the moment. It's nothing about attack or proceeding of Russian forces, but it's just constant shelling and constant destruction of the civilian objects, mostly.
And when you say Lviv, Mykolaiv, Kharkiv, Donetsk, these are all in the eastern part, the eastern region.
So eastern, we would say that it's Donetsk region, Luhansk, and Kharkiv region. But if we go south, then here we have Kherson and Mykolaiv. Kherson is under Russian control, Mykolaiv is under Ukrainian control, and also we can see a lot of fighting going on there and a lot of shelling going on there. But again, because Russian forces concentrated almost all of their fresh power and most of their equipment, like really a great amount, in Severodonetsk in particular, in this one spot, Ukrainian army had a chance to advance in the Kherson region, and at the moment there is a counter-attack by Ukrainian forces in Kherson because there is lack of Russian forces, and basically Ukrainian army is using this chance to divide Russian forces in two parts in Kherson region, and we will see, because it's very interesting, tactic, and it's quite interesting what's going to happen next, because this is really a chance now for Ukrainian forces, while Russian forces are concentrating all of their forces in Severodonetsk. Mykolaiv was always, from day one, was under Ukrainian control, but again, the city is suffering a lot from the shelling, because this is a very important city for Russian forces. It's on the way to Odessa, and when Russian officials were saying that they would like to control all south part of Ukraine, it means that Mykolaiv is also a strategic point for them. So the city itself and the region, Mykolaiv region, also suffering from very heavy shellings. And just in the past days, as I look at the reports, there were dozens of shellings, and unfortunately, civilians dying every day. But again, city is defending and is one of the this fort posts now in the south. But also, again, as you know. In Kyiv, people don't feel absolutely safe. It's just, people are getting used to this situation. Similarly, in the West, for example, when we talk about Lviv, people are living their lives there, but time to time, still shelling's happening. And yesterday in the evening, when the whole country was under the air raid siren, it was a missile attack at Lviv, and what we know for the moment is that it was attack on the railway infrastructure. It was destroyed, not destroyed, but heavily damaged, pretty much. And it took it's still under the repairing works, and still some trains are not going through there. And I just want to remind that Lviv is basically the central city for all the refugees and all the not refugees, but internally displaced people, and all the organizations, all the international logistics, basically. So, this is kind of the atmosphere. So every region is under a great risk. And unfortunately, we see that every day, almost every region is suffering from certain missile attacks.
Very difficult circumstances over there. But we heard during his address to the Luxembourg Parliament, the Ukraine president say that Russia now controls 20% of his country's territory. I'm wondering how the Ukrainians feel about this, if it means that, the Ukrainian troops are winning, or that Russia is also winning. This is also alongside what some analysts are saying, that taking Severodonetsk would mean Russia controls almost all of Luhansk in the eastern Donbass region.
Yeah, this is true. 20% of Ukrainian territory is under Russian control for the moment. I think that at the beginning of this war, there were around 10, 7, 10. But we should look, and Ukrainians are trying to look at this situation in a general, like now at the general map. So we can definitely see that from the beginning of this war, when Kiev region was under attack, Sumy region, Chernihiv region, which is north part, there were much more territories under occupation. Now we can see that, the central part and north part is completely liberated, and this definitely makes a very positive emotional, emotional trigger for Ukrainians, because of course we understand that a lot of territories are occupied, and much more than it was before the beginning of war, but still it's less than it was during, the first weeks or first months of war. What I should say that, of course, when we hear some suggestions by certain European or international experts that Ukraine should give up some territories in order to, make peace or illusion of peace, we just have to understand that this 20% of territory is almost half of, or even, I think it's half of Italy. So we just have to realize how huge this, territory is. And absolutely, when we talk about Severodonetsk, for example, yes, we do understand that it's probably gonna be, so if Severodonetsk falls and Russia controls Severodonetsk in full, it will be almost the whole Luhansk region would be lost. But still, it's quite early to say this, because according to military experts and military officials, because of course we can just, look at it as as the experts in information or experts in any other area, but not military. So military experts say that it's quite early to say that Luhansk region is under Russian control, because the city of Lysychansk is still very important and very difficult spot. Would be very difficult spot for Russians to take over. But again, we'll see how it's going to happen and what's going to happen. Still, also there was a certain investigation by the Institute of War, and experts of this institution said that, of course, it's very sad and to give up Severodonetsk for Ukrainian side, but from operational point of view, it's quite wise, because this basically what Ukrainian forces are doing now. They're trying to get certain advantage in the south. So we really should not just look at certain area. We should look in this front line as a general picture.
And, another game changer might also be the advanced weapons, that the U.S. says, it plans to send more advanced artillery systems to Ukraine. But Russia is criticizing that, saying that, they're adding fuel to fire. But we know President Joe Biden said the goal was to also help Ukraine defend itself, and he hopes that it could help with negotiations between both countries. How far, has talks come up since?
We should remember, first of all, that aggressor and country that started this war is Russia. So Russia has definitely, they have a very interesting, position for during their speeches. But we should understand that Russia is aggressor, and it's quite not correct for Russia to say that, Ukraine, if Ukraine gets weapons, they could attack us. Ukraine is protecting, defending itself, and this is the most important. And Ukrainian president, Ukrainian officials said from the very beginning that Ukraine doesn't want any territories any other territories except of Ukrainian territories. So, as President Zelensky confirmed and President Biden confirmed, that Ukraine would not use these weapons to attack Russia's territory. So I think this, of course, Russia and Russian officials would not be happy about this. But again, what they're saying about escalation or adding oil to fire, well, it's just probably something that they should say, but it's not going to really change much, because this is defending, first of all, it's defending artillery and defending equipment. We cannot say if these have changed the negotiations yet, because equipment is not in Ukraine and not at the front line at the moment. So we, as we hear from the Ukrainian officials expect this equipment to come in, well, in about a couple of weeks. So no one says exactly, but well, we understand that it would take some time for Ukrainian soldiers to get trained to use this equipment, and also to transfer this equipment to Ukraine. But definitely this would be a game changer. At least this is what is expected, because as we already were discussing, that the main negotiation is happening at the battlefield. So whatever situation is at the battlefield, it basically creates a platform for negotiation field. So yeah, we will just wait. But of course, Ukrainian society and Ukrainian officials are very happy about the recent confirmations of the equipment that Ukraine is going to receive, and well, everyone is waiting for them to come and to be a part of this battle.
Anna, it's always good to have you join us. Thank you so much, and do continue to stay safe.
Thank you.
Well, Sweden's defense minister has said that the country will provide Ukraine with more economic aid and military equipment, including anti-ship missiles, rifles and anti-tank weapons. According to him, the government proposes that Sweden assist Ukraine with Robot 17 automatic rifle, 90 with ammunition, an additional 5,000 anti-tank weapons and financial resources to the fund in support of Ukraine's armed forces set up by NATO. Lithuanians have donated more than €5 million to a public fundraising campaign designed to buy a combat drone for Ukrainian forces fighting Russia's invasion. The money needed to buy a Turkish Bayraktar TB2 drone was raised in 3.5 days, ending Saturday evening in the country of 2.8 million people, according to the founder of the online broadcaster television, which launched the initiative. It will transfer the funds to Lithuania's defense ministry, which will assume the task of buying the drone and its munitions. EU's Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has said that it was the European Union's duty to make a Ukrainian membership possible. She also said that facilitating the exportation of Ukrainian wheat was crucial. Ms. von der Leyen also said she wanted to hit Russia's war chest by reducing the EU's dependency on Russian fossil energy.
They want to join the European Union. We've heard it over and over again. I think it's not only our strategic interest, but it is our moral duty to make it possible that they join our European Union and that we pave the path towards our union. Deliberately bombarding warehouses with Ukrainian wheat. At the moment being, we have 20 million tons of Ukrainian wheat stuck in Ukraine. So we have to do everything to get it out via our green lanes. This is not trivial, but it is absolutely worth every single effort. So if we want to hit the Kremlin's war chest, if we want to drain Putin's war chest, then we have to get rid of our dependency on Russian fossil fuels. We have gotten rid of coal already. We're working hard now to ban up to 90% of Russian oil, and we have to get rid of Russian gas.
And a decision announced by the U.S. government on Wednesday to send more advanced weapons such as the high-mobility artillery rocket systems HIMARS to Ukraine is adding fuel to fire on the ongoing conflict. Press Secretary for Russian President Vladimir Putin said he believes the U.S. is directly and intentionally adding fuel to the fire. The U.S. is obviously holding the line that it will fight Russia to the last Ukrainian. That's according to him. Well, such weapon supplies would not encourage Ukraine's leadership to resume peace talks. That's also something he added. Well, also staying with the Kremlin, it says the U.S. plans to sell Ukraine 4 MQ-1 Sea-Gray Eagle drones that can be armed with Hellfire missiles for battlefield use, and it would not change the parameters of what Russia calls its special military operation. It was reported the Biden's administration, the transaction could still be blocked by Congress or derailed by a last-minute policy reversal. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters on a conference call that pumping Western, he called it, weapons into Ukraine does not change all the parameters of that operation. Well, since February 24, the ongoing war in Ukraine has drawn conscripts and volunteers into combat on both sides of the conflict. And before Russia's invasion, Ukrainians joined citizen militias to train on how they could defend themselves and their country if Russia crossed into its territory. President Volodymyr Zelensky moved to arm civilians with roughly 18,000 rifles in the Kyiv region alone, this according to one report. And to acquire these firearms, citizens needed only to show an ID, rounding out the defense capabilities of average citizens. Ukrainian officials took to the airwaves post-invasion to inform the citizens how to manufacture Molotov cocktails efficiently and where and how to attack Russian armored vehicles with them effectively. Well, joining us to talk more about this, international affairs expert Adam Roosevelt. He joins me now from Dubai. Thanks and welcome to the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What's your take on the proliferation of weapons, and this is as a result of the invasion in Ukraine?
Well, I'll first start by saying that the strategy in terms of equipping the Ukrainian military and its volunteer force has been consistent with ensuring they have the small arms, and then we effectively focused on making sure they had other equipment such as drones and so forth. Proliferation today is going to continue demanding new advanced systems to effectively what we call expand their strike capabilities as well as their range. Currently, right now, the conversation is centered on providing Ukraine with missile systems that will allow them to strike within 50 miles. Now, these equipment is essentially U.S.-grade equipment military, but it comes with conditions from the White House that this equipment will not be used to strike Russian territory. This is where the gray area will be, because what the U.S. is asking the Ukraine to do is arm themselves, but at the same time follow conditions that the U.S. sets, given that they've lost so much ground thus far. It is going to be extremely difficult to see them hold back with discipline.
And that is the question, will they be able to do that? With these advanced weapons coming in, could that also change the war?
I think it can. And I think if we were to put ourselves in the Kremlin's shoes, we would have a different perspective. We've not been in this particular position where we don't have U.S. military on the ground in the Ukraine, but the United States military is providing intelligence, very advanced weaponry. So the Russian counterpart on the other side will be holding the U.S. accountable at some point in time. So I think this will be a question about what Russia will do in terms of retribution in the future for allies of NATO, specifically led by the United States, and what retribution looks like, not just from an economic perspective, but also from a military and intelligence perspective, and leveraging what we would call guerrilla warfare tactics to target U.S. interests in different ways that we've not seen today.
And of course, Russia is frowning at that, this U.S. advanced weapons to Ukraine. But also, you know, looking at the way things are, the conflict there, do you fear that we are not past the nuclear dimension to this invasion?
Well, having served in the military and having been in 2 military campaigns, you know, as a commander, putting the shoes on in the commander's room, I would say that nuclear capabilities not just cover nuclear. We have a term called chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear. four classes, if you will, in terms of tools that could be deployed. But I would say that the Kremlin is holding back this capability primarily because they know that NATO is looking for the reason. And anything that would leverage a CBRN capability, which includes nuclear, would give the NATO allies some reason to encroach further into this war. We won't say potentially putting boots on the ground, but there are innovative ways beyond economic sanctions, beyond intelligence, beyond supplies that the U.S. and NATO could effectively encroach further and support Ukraine with this particular effort.
And Adam, finally, Ukraine citizens were allowed to own firearms even before the conflict, by getting a license through government. What would a post-war Ukraine look like?
Well, a post-war Ukraine will look like a very devastated country, from infrastructure sectors ranging from construction, real estate, food, and information technology, data centers. Everything is degraded. We will go through what I would consider to be a reconstruction era funded by NATO, funded by European Union. Whether or not they join the EU, there will be a tremendous amount of surplus of cash that needs to go into a fund for reconstruction because of the degraded infrastructure.
International affairs expert Adam Roosevelt from Dubai, thank you so much for joining us, for your expertise on the program.
Thank you.
And hundreds of thousands of Britons today witnessed trooping the colour marking the Queen's Jubilee celebration starting today. The event kickstarts the long weekend of celebrations. Take a look.
The main highlight of the Jubilee celebration starting today, the Queen's appearance at the balcony of Buckingham Palace. She is wearing an outfit described as dusky dove blue as they inspect parading troops. Before her appearance, other royals had made their way out in true royal fashion through Queen Victoria Memorial in front of Buckingham Palace, down the Mall, as hundreds of thousands of people lined the streets to watch. First was Prince Charles and Prince William on horseback, then Princess Anne also on horseback, before the carriages carrying Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, Kate, the Duchess of Cambridge, in horse-drawn carriage with her children waving to the crowd. The Queen's Birthday Parade, also known as Trooping the Colour, has more than 1,200 soldiers taking part, along with military bands. It's been held for more than 260 years. On the first of 4 days of celebrations in Britain to mark Queen Elizabeth II's 7 decades on the throne. The Queen has attended every such parade except one since 1955. With scaled-down ceremonies taking place in the last 2 years because of the coronavirus restrictions. Due to her mobility issues, for the first time, she takes the salute from soldiers and officers from the balcony of Buckingham Palace.
And our London correspondent Juliana Lainka has been mingling with the crowd and I'm sure attending parties. She joins us now. Hi Juliana, talk us through some of the highlights of today's celebration which kicks off this long weekend.
I have been living in London my entire life, and I can tell you the kind of excitement that I'm feeling on the streets right now is something I have never, ever experienced. Truly, everybody is geared up for a really exciting 4-day Jubilee, Platinum Jubilee special. It started off at about 10 a.m. this morning. Well, for some people, it started off days before that because we have seen people camping outside of the Mall to make sure they can get a secure position during the Trooping of the Colour, which is the first thing that started. The Trooping of the Colour is basically Britain showing off its military might, its military prowess. There was a 40-gun salute. I believe there was another 20-gun salute. In fact, hundreds of guns have been shot off around the country to pay tribute to Her Majesty's 70 years on the throne. This is the first time it's ever been done. And to put some perspective into this situation, let's look at the backdrop. Britain has had one of the most tumultuous COVID-19s. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives due to COVID. We have our own domestic issues. Food prices are currently at a 40-year high. So many people are not in a great shape at the moment. And then what do you get? You get 2 banked holiday weekends, and you get to celebrate somebody who's a really extraordinary figure, somebody who has spent 70 years of her life serving people at a time when there has been so much scandal surrounding the royal family, whether it's in regards to Prince Andrew and those sexual abuse allegations, or of course Mexit, which was when the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan, decided to depart to Los Angeles. But at that time, we've just had a really steady, cool, calm monarch, and I think that's exactly why people are celebrating today, because they appreciate her strength and stay. I know the Queen is noted as saying that her late husband, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, was her strength and stay, but that is exactly what she has been to the British public, which is why the Chancellor and the Treasury dedicated £25 million to make sure that these events go on without a hitch. So far there hasn't been any hitch. I did see there was a little bit of scuffles. I think some environmentalists and activists tried to evade the Trooping of the Colour, but as you can imagine, the police swiftly went in and took them off from that site. But, you know, is it worth it? Some would say yes, because according to economists, £100 million is going to be injected into the British economy this weekend. And you can see it all around me. It almost feels like it's Christmas Eve or it's New Year's Eve. There are that many people outside celebrating the Queen today.
Interestingly, after Partygate, one wonders how number 10 is celebrating. But then, Juliana, we see lots of people have been camped outside, as close enough as they can get to Buckingham Palace. There's lots of excitement in the air. You expressed that. What's the itinerary for the remaining days?
Well, let's not forget that the Queen is 96 years old. So unfortunately, for those that do want to see Her Majesty, we won't be seeing too much of her today. We have seen her on the balcony. I believe we will be seeing her much later again, I believe, at Buckingham Palace. And then we are going into a spectacular weekend. I think the biggest one has got to be Sunday. It's according to estimates, there are about 16,000 street parties taking place up and down the country. I certainly will try to attend one of those. And then on Saturday, we also have the BBC Platinum Jubilee special service, where we're going to be seeing the likes of Queen the rock band, and Alicia Keys and other A-listers come and serenade the Queen. That is going to be something really exciting. And we know that the Duke and Duchess of Cornwall will be there. Will Harry and Meghan make an appearance? I think we're all waiting really for that iconic shot. And then tomorrow morning, there will be a service of Thanksgiving at St Paul's Cathedral. Now, early in the week, we did get that pretty sad notification that the Archbishop of Canterbury will not be in attendance. Justin Welby has tested positive for COVID-19, and unfortunately, he is showing some pneumonia symptoms. But there is going to be lots to celebrate, and I'm going to be out and about, and hopefully viewers can catch a special Platinum Jubilee Channels Business Global special, which will be airing on Channels TV tomorrow at 4:30.
Thanks, Juliana. Also, save a plate. You can send it down from some of those parties you'll be attending. Our London correspondent, Juliana Lainka, there at London's West End with that latest. Well, staying with the royal Jubilee crowd, Britain's heir to the throne, Prince Charles, and his wife, Camilla, greeted fans at the top of the Mall near Buckingham Palace following the trooping of the column military parade earlier today. Prince Charles shook hands with well-wishers who were gathered for the first day of celebrations marking his mother, Queen Elizabeth's 70 years on the throne. And Prince Louis IV covered his ears a few times, or rather he is 4 years old, by the way, covered his ears a few times during the fly past on the balcony of Buckingham Palace today. He watched the fly past by modern and historic Royal Air Force planes in honor of his great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, who's marking her 70 years on the throne. On the balcony with Louis, who was standing next to the Queen, were his grandfather, Prince Charles, his father, Prince William, his mother, Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, and siblings, Princess Charlotte, 7, and Prince George, 8. We continue in the United States, where 4 people have been killed, including a gunman, and multiple others wounded in a shooting Wednesday on a hospital campus in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Officers were still working to clear the St. Francis Hospital campus, the Tulsa Police Department said on Twitter. Captain Richard Muhlenberg said the police received a call about a man with a rifle on the 2nd floor of a building on the medical campus, and that it turned into an active shooter situation. By the time officers arrived on the scene, they found a few people had been shot. A couple were dead at that point, he said. However, there's been no reports to how the suspected gunman died. Mass shootings are causing major concern for many American citizens and also political leaders. Here's our Washington correspondent, Mira Bird, with more.
Mass shootings have become a far too often seen in the U.S. In less than 6 months, there have been over 230 mass shootings in the United States. This grim figure has called Congress to take action.
There have been more mass shootings than days in the year. Our kids are living in fear every single time they set foot in a classroom because they think they're going to be next. What are we doing? Why do you spend all this time running for the United States Senate? Why do you go through all the hassle of getting this job, of putting yourself in a position of authority, if your answer is that as this slaughter increases, as our kids run for their lives, we do nothing?
Despite the congressional recess this week, House Judiciary Committee has announced a markup for this week, with the Democrats intent on advancing a bill with a suite of gun control proposals that will be ready for a full House vote when they return to session early next week.
Here in America, we have 4% of the world's population, but 40% of the world's guns. That means there are more than 300 million guns circulating in the United States of America. And many of those guns.
The U.S. stands on its legacy of freedom, but has this founding principle led to the U.S. leading the world in mass shootings and gun violence? One parent that lost their child 10 years ago during the Sandy Hook mass shooting wants to know, when will America change?
I am angry at the cowardice and the inaction of those Congress people who will not stand up and say we must keep our community safe.
Many Americans are asking that President Biden move swiftly and executes drastic executive orders that would restrict gun ownership only to those individuals that have undergone and passed mental health evaluations. From Washington, Maria Bird, Channel Television News.
And over in Mexico, the death toll caused by Hurricane Agatha has risen to 11, with another 33 missing and thousands of people affected by heavy rains likely to continue. Video shows damaged Palapaz restaurants, shops and staff members removing sand from the businesses. Residents and some of the tourists who were stranded are still facing food and water shortage and the lack of fuel, electricity and telecommunication services. Dozens of houses were damaged, many of which were left uninhabitable by the swollen rivers, and residents returned today to save some of their belongings. Into health matters now, head of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, says the sudden appearance of monkeypox in many countries at the same time suggests there may have been undetected transmission for some time. Dr. Ghebreyesus says more than 550 confirmed cases have now been reported to the WHO from 30 countries that are not endemic for monkeypox virus.
More than 550 confirmed cases have now been reported to WHO from 30 countries that are not endemic for monkeypox virus. Investigations are ongoing, but the sudden appearance of monkeypox in many countries at the same time suggests there may have been undetected transmission for some time. So far, most cases have been reported among men who have sex with men presenting with symptoms as sexual health clinics. These communities are working hard to inform their members about the risks of monkeypox and prevent transmission. But all of us must work hard to fight stigma, which is not just wrong, it could also prevent infected individuals from seeking care, making it harder to stop transmission. WHO is urging affected countries to widen their surveillance, to look for cases in the broader community. Anyone can be infected with monkeypox if they have close physical contact with someone else who is infected.
And to security here on the continent, a Senegalese refugee, his 3 wives, children and extended family are among more than 690 people that crossed into the Gambia after the Senegalese military launched an operation on March 13 against rebels in Casamance fighting for independence. Amid continuous fightings, they are now hosted by Gambians while waiting to return home.
Stray bullets whistled past Senegalese villager Modou Badji and his family as they ran through a cashew forest in the middle of the night to reach neighboring Gambia, pushed to abandon their fields by a flare-up in fighting between soldiers and separatists in Senegal's southern Casamance region.
We fled because of the war. I regularly heard gunshots. This was the military and the rebels who were fighting. It's true that we couldn't see them, but we could hear the shooting. It wasn't safe to stay in that environment.
Badji, his 3 wives, children and extended family, among more than 690 people that crossed into Gambia after the Senegalese military launched an operation on March 13th against rebels in Casamance fighting for independence. Formed in 1982, the separatist movement have been largely dormant since a ceasefire in 2014, but continues to launch occasional attacks, prompting military interventions. The latest clash displaced over 6,000 villagers in both Senegal and Gambia, where households have been hosting refugees, placing pressure on the tiny West African nation of around 2 million people. Badji's dozen relatives moved in with a family of around 15. Women and children sleep together under the corrugated iron roof of the cement home on mattresses laid out across the floor.
At home, everyone had their own room, and you could sleep peacefully inside. Now, look at us. We're sleeping on the floor. The people who took us in are sleeping with us. They don't have any privacy because of us. The Gambian government helped us by building the tents you can see over there, but it is very hot inside.
The men stay in green tarpaulin tents donated by the Gambian Red Cross. Badge's host Suleiman Sonko said humanitarian assistance has been slow and sparse.
Many children have stopped going to school since they fled their village. Before the exam, they had to flee because of a military. It hurts me. They can't even go and get cashew nuts to sell and eat, and that is because of a military.
This situation worries Abdullahi Fai, Director of Programs and Operations at the Gambian Red Cross Society.
We don't actually know what is the situation, in the Casamance region. The fighting can erupt at any time. We don't know. So it means still now people have to be very much careful, in those areas. But of course, getting security updates, and the security providing the necessary support to the population in this area so that they are, in a safe zone at all times.
For now, nobody knows when the fighting will end and the displaced population able to return home.
And we wrap up where we started. Soldiers of the Territorial Defense Force of Ukraine in Kharkiv cheered on their team when they played in a World Cup qualification playoff match against Scotland. A very small screen in shelter was enough for the men to enjoy their team's 3-1 triumph at Hampden Park in Glasgow. The triumph leaves Ukraine knowing that a win against Wales on Sunday, June the 5th in Cardiff will earn them a place in the World Cup finals for just the second time as an independent nation. Ukraine coach Oleksandr Petrikov said the victory had been a victory for his compatriots who fight with every last drop of their blood. There was no doubt about the significance of the victory achieved in front of over 2,000 traveling fans from the Ukrainian diaspora and watched back home by millions on television. Seems as if the Ukrainians yet again on the field have to prove themselves, and they seem to be doing well with football. Wish them all the best, and that's it on The World Today. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good evening.